Hey vinyl community, it's MGK Boston. That's Mike back with another video. This week it's just basically a recent finds kind of thing. About a week ago I went into Boston. I went to one of my favorite shops down in Commonwealth Ave by Boston University right there. Little basement shop called In Your Ear. He's been around for 30 plus years. Guy's name's Reed. I think I've mentioned the store before. Really good store. So I traded in some stuff that I just wasn't listening to. I had a reject pile going like I usually do. And with the store credit, I actually made out with a really good haul. A lot of good stuff. Undervalued, in my opinion. All the stuff's in really great shape too. So without further ado, I'll just dive right in. Yeah, speaking of great finds. So of course, the Flying Burrito Brothers. I believe this is their second album. I think the first one was self-titled. The band was founded around two founding members who had played with the Byrds, Chris Hillman, of course, and the late, great Graham Parsons. Yeah, so the band, like I said, these two guys, Chris Hillman and Graham Parsons, had played with the Byrds, another band that also went through frequent personnel changes, and they were on that Sweetheart of the Rodeo album. This, arguably, you could call this the beginnings of country rock, alt country, whatever you want to call it. It didn't sell very well at the time when this came out. I think the release date on this, it's 1969. Yeah, I think it was a year or two after that Byrds album that I mentioned. So, and it's called The Gilded Palace of Sin. So this is one of those albums, everybody wants it. And like I've said in my other videos, I don't buy a lot of stuff online. Once in a while, if it's a new release, I'll order it online, or my wife will give me a gift for birthday, Christmas kind of thing. But I like to dig and go into the old used stuff. And I found this, and it's like it's in new condition. It's really excellent. Plays great. It's the stereo version. I don't know if it was ever on mono, but like I said, I don't get bogged down in all of that. And of course, this was on A&M. Some of the tunes on this, of course, Hot Burrito #1, Hot Burrito #2 are the highlights for me. Of course, Christine's tune is excellent, and Sin City. Yeah, Dark End of the Street, probably my second favorite on this, next to Hot Burrito 1 and 2. Can't recommend this enough. Again, it's one of those, I always have it on my list, and I look for it, and there it was last Friday, and I grabbed it. Really great price too, under 10 bucks. And you look on Discogs, this usually goes for at least $20, $25. And again, it's I call it in very good plus condition per Discogs ratings, if you will. So, like I said, Chris Hillman, Graham Parsons, they were both in the Byrds. Like I said, if something's germane to the conversation, I'll throw it in. I didn't buy this last Friday. I've had this for several years now. And this is the album I mentioned. Release date on this one, I believe, is 1967 or 68, year or two right before that Flying Burritos album. So this is Sweetheart of the Rodeo that I mentioned. Yeah, so of course you all know the Byrds. I'm not going to give you the history of this album, but yeah, this is where the two guys, Chris Hillman and Graham Parsons, came from, and then of course they went on and formed the Flying Burrito Brothers. So I just thought I'd throw that in. And on another Graham Parsons note, I did pick this up last Friday. This is Emmylou Harris's major label debut, if you will. I think she had one or two releases before, but she was primarily a backup singer, collaborator with a number of people, including Graham Parsons, who arguably she would have considered him her mentor. I think they were romantically involved too, until his untimely death. I believe he passed in 1972 at the age of 26. It was a drug overdose at a motel, actually right on the fringe of the Joshua Tree National Park out in the southwest of the United States. So this kicks off, of course, Bluebird Wine is an excellent song. And yeah, this is kind of her ode to Graham Parsons. It's a song called Boulder to Birmingham. Beautiful, beautiful song. The Bottle Let Me Down. That's Merle Haggard cover she does on this. I mean, really, you've heard the phrase voice of an angel, but she really is. Emmylou Harris, and she's a beauty too. I mean, just look at her. Fantastic. And she's still active today. Of course, she's in the Country Music Hall of Fame. But, she's a crossover artist, folk, country, a bit of both. She can honky-tonk with the best of them, but a folk singer at heart, I think, is where she came from initially in the early 70s. But yeah, this is great, and it's called... there it is, Pieces of the Sky, Emmylou Harris. highly recommended. I have a bunch of Emmylou Harris, and I was really happy to see that. So I've mentioned these guys before, Mark-Almond, there they are. That's their surnames. The two founding members of this band, of course, John Mark on lead vocals, guitar, and Johnny Almond on saxophone. Both of these guys, the founding members of Mark-Almond, were in John Mayall and the Blues Breakers. That was a band where a lot of people went through, including Eric Clapton, among other guys that went on to bigger and better things. But yeah, I believe this is the third release from Mark-Almond. I think I've shown their stuff before. There's the guys and there's the other members of the band. I believe the drummer on here, a guy named Donnie Richmond. He played with Charles Mingus, the jazz guy. He played with Charles Mingus for a time. So yeah, on the jazz note, Mark-Almond, they're rock, I guess you'd say, but they're jazz rock, if that's a thing. Their stuff's really chill because you've got that saxophone, of course the baritone. He plays baritone, alto, and tenor, and soprano sax, and the vibes, vibraphone, of course. You know what that is if you're into jazz. Let's say vibraphone is just another name for a xylophone. So some of the highlights on this. Where's the track listing on this? I'm going to find it. Well, let's just dig right into the record here. Yeah, there's a whole suite on side A called the Sausalito Bay Suite. Of course, I know it's the Sausalito, the city in San Francisco. It's in 4 parts: the bridge, the bay, solitude, and friends. All about Sausalito Bay, of course, in Northern California. And then right where I am, we have here a Journey Through New England. So it's also very nice, and it's a 3-part suite: One Way Sunday, Sunset, and Ballad of a Man. So it's kind of a concept album. I wouldn't call this exciting, but it's certainly relaxing. Put this on a Sunday afternoon. It's really great, just if you want to chill, or background music. You've got some friends over and you don't want to crank it up. You've got Mark-Almond. Yeah, so I'm almost the completist with these guys. I almost have everything. So yeah, again, I found this, and this is kind of cool, the artwork on the front, and it's got this flap, which is kind of funky. Yeah, Mark-Almond. I believe this was their third release. I don't know why it's called Mark-Almond 2. Pretty sure this is their third. Okay, and shifting gears. Yeah. So speaking of sidemen, David Lindley, one of the biggest session guys in the business through the 70s, 80s, 90s. Of course, he played with Jackson Browne all through the 70s. He's on all those Jackson Browne albums. And then he founded his own band. I think this is their second release. Of course, his band he called Rayo-X. And of course, there's David Lindley right there. He's front and center with his guitar. And there's the other members of the band right there. So yeah, this is just called Win This Record. It's really fun. I guess you can see there are more photos on the back of the band. I really like the artwork on this. It's almost cartoonish. The music, I would kind of describe it as pub rock, but it's definitely fun stuff. There's a really good cover on here. Let's see how I find it here. Of course, they were on David Geffen's label Asylum, and yeah, something's got a hold on me. That's an Etta James cover, and it's really good. It kicks off this album. It's fun. Speaking of music you want to play at a party, this is one you want to play at a party and you want to turn it up. It's really good. Arguably, you could say it's one of the best albums of the 80s. A lot of critics really like it, and for good reason. It's really excellent. So there's an old friend of mine back in Ontario, Canada, where I'm from. If you watch my channel, his name's Pat Johnson. He has a great YouTube channel. He doesn't do vinyl community stuff. He's a musician. So there's lots of clips of him playing. He's a guitar teacher in Eastern Ontario, in the town where I'm from. And if you do a search on YouTube, Pat Johnson musician, you'll see his stuff. And he's also a pretty gifted guitarist. But I mentioned Pat only because I know he's a big fan of David Lindley. So I just thought I'd throw that shout out in for Pat Johnson, musician. So again, yeah, if you search Pat Johnson musician, YouTube, you'll find him. Friend of mine, highly recommended. Speaking of highly recommended, I think I just mentioned Jerry Jeff Walker a couple weeks ago. This album came out, what's this one, 78 on Elektra. This was definitely a sort of a departure for Jerry Jeff at this point. It's almost like Bob Seger moved to Texas at points of this. It's kind of got a rocky, I call it, barroom bluesy feel to it. Less of the honky tonk and Texas sound, but regardless, he's still got the chops on this one. It's really good. There's the man right there. Of course, he passed in 2020. And yeah, so there's lyrics to a tune on the inside here. And there's the personnel, the Bandito Band. And you know, he's got his renegade guests, as he says. And yeah, so this was recorded, of course, in Austin, Texas, where he resided at the time. And there's his wife, she was with him right till the end, Susan. And his daughter, Jessie, right there. That's kind of a neat photo right there. It would have been taken at the time this was recorded. And, you know, some of the highlights on this, Eastern Avenue is good. Boogie Mama is good. Like when I mentioned the Bob Seger feel, that's definitely got the vibe going there. Banks of the Old Bandera is good. Yeah, if you like Jerry Jeff Walker, you're going to dig this. It's no exception. He's in fine form on this one. You know, kind of a sign off to the 70s here. I don't know if he had any more records after this one, any more releases rather. This was, of course, like I said, 1978, the release date on this one, again, on Elektra. So Jerry Jeff Walker, the title on this one's just Jerry Jeff, like it says right here in the corner. So yeah, almost like a self-titled record. But yeah, I'm getting up there with the Jerry Jeff Walker stuff. The Viva la Trilingua, if I'm saying that right, the live album. Then I've got another double live from 76 that's really good. And I think that's just Jerry Jeff Walker live. But yeah, really good. I think I'm good on the Jerry Jeff Walker stuff for now. Got all the kind of the essentials. So here's another guy I might have mentioned a couple of months ago, rockabilly sensation, Robert Gordon. This one was recorded in 1980 in New York City. Lots of personnel a note on this one, but I thought this was kind of interesting. Before his days with David Letterman, there's Paul Schaefer on keyboards right there. I thought that was kind of cool. And there he is right there, Robert Gordon playing a little 8-ball, it looks like. So yeah, this one, Are You Gonna Be the, it kicks off with Are You Gonna Be the One, that's great. But I should point out, some of the tunes on this, they've got a real, almost country and western vibe to it. Really cool. He does a cover on this of Look Who's Blue. That's by Don Gibson. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I like the vintage country, 50s and 60s stuff. Don Gibson was great right through the 60s. Really good stuff. And yeah, they do a cover of that tune, Look Who's Blue. Look up the Robert Gordon version from this album, and also look up the Don Gibson, and you can compare the two. Like I say, I love a cover version when they work at their own angle, and Robert Gordon does just that with Look Who's Blue. And of course, like I said, Are You Gonna Be the One's great. Well, there's another cover on here. Yeah, Someday, Some Way. That's a Marshall Crenshaw song. That's probably the version you're familiar with. Someday, Some Way. Yeah, you've heard it, and you just probably didn't know who the singer was. Of course, the original was a guy named Marshall Crenshaw. He was out of Michigan in the 80s, late 70s. So yeah, Robert Gordon, Are You Gonna Be the One? Like I said, that's the title track, and it's a good track on here. So you can look that up. All those songs are on YouTube. And like I said, if it's part of the conversation, I'll show it. So this is just a collection, like I said, country and western, 60s. I don't call him a legend, but he was a pretty big deal at the time. And he's in the Country Music Hall of Fame too. That's Don Gibson. There he is on the back there. And yeah, he's a really good singer. Low and Lonely, She's Looking Good, I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, and It's a Long, Long Way to Georgia. All those are really excellent songs. And this, again, is just yeah, they call him country soul because he could really belt out a ballad. And there he is with his guitar. It's Don Gibson. He was, of course, he was on RCA. Probably all these songs were recorded at Studio B in Nashville, at RCA Studio B. Studio A being in New York City. All right, totally shifting styles here. The Bangles. I believe they were out of Northern California, maybe San Francisco. There's the beautiful Susanna Hoffs. Follow her on Instagram. She's 61 or 62. She looks the same. It's just remarkable. Very talented singer, guitarist. And of course, other members of the band, of this band at the time, was the two sisters. Yeah, Vicki Peterson and Debbie Peterson. Debbie was the drummer. There she is, right there. And her sister Vicki, lead guitar and vocals. They kind of traded off on vocals, Vicki Peterson and Susanna Hoffs on the Bangles stuff. This is their debut. They had a couple of 7-inch singles before this, but this is their major label debut on Columbia. It's really good. It was top 40, but it wasn't. This first one didn't really have any breakthrough #1 hits. They're follow-ups to this Wood. This is my favorite. This is the only one I have, and it's probably the only one I'm going to bother to get. I might get a collection of singles or something like that if I see it. I know they have a best of. But yeah, Hero Takes a Fall, that single charted on here. You may have heard that. Dover Beach has actually got some new, it's got some sort of psychedelic, jangly guitars on it that are really nice. Again, that track, Dover Beach. And probably my favorite song on this album, it's called Going Down to Liverpool. The music video for this, it's great. The band is all crammed. The 4 girls are packed in the back of a taxi, driven by none other than Leonard Nimoy. You would know him as Mr. Spock from Star Trek. So it's a pretty comical video if you want to look that up. Going Down to Liverpool. And yeah, this is the Bangles. All Over the Place, the title of this, right there. And released in 1984. Highly recommended. During my high school years, I was a little dismissive of them after this, because I was a bit of a music snob. I was, you know, if it wasn't super college radio alternative, I used to dismiss it. But there's no denying this debut is good. And it's called All Over the Place by the Bangles. All right. Trying to speed it up because I'm trying not to go over 30 minutes in these videos. I want to keep you amused but not bore you to death. All right. Speaking of not being bored to death, Grace Jones. This came out in 1980, produced by Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare. I think I mentioned them a couple of videos ago when I was talking about Black Uhuru reggae band. Sly and Robbie produced a lot of reggae bands, late 70s, all through the 80s, into the 90s. And they kind of revived Grace Jones' career with this one. Warm Leatherette is the title of this. Warm Leatherette this is actually a cover. It was a guy named Daniel Miller. He founded the Mute Records label in England. That was home to bands like Fad Gadget, Depeche Mode, New Order, among others. And I think later that label Mute got swallowed up by Sire. I could be mistaken in that, but yeah, I'd have to look that up, and I didn't bother doing that. But anyway, I just knew about Daniel Miller, and I remember I had a 12-inch single for Warm Leatherette, and I sold it a long time ago because to me it was a bit of a novelty, but she does a really good version of it on here. And yeah, this is like club music with like cool, almost not reggae tone, well, a little bit of reggae tones to it, I guess, because you got Sly and Robbie in there mixing things up. But yeah, because Sly Dunbar plays drums on this. Of course, Robbie Shakespeare's on bass, so he's giving it that funky background. And yeah, of course, Grace Jones just does lead vocals. And yeah, this came out in 1980. Of course, Warm Leatherette is the title track. She does a cover of Love is the Drug. Of course, that's a Roxy Music song. And Private Life is a really excellent song too. So look up any of those songs. Of course, like I said, Love is the Drug is a cover, and she does a cool version of it. But yeah, picture yourself in a dark club in the early 80s, and this would sound great cranked up. It's Grace Jones, Warm Leatherette. And she really was on a roll. It was almost like a 2-record set. The next year she came out with this one. I believe the release, yeah, this was 1981. And again, this is produced by Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare, otherwise known as Sly and Robbie. There you can see all the musicians right there. There's Sly Dunbar. And where's Robbie? Oh, yeah, there he is, right down there. Robbie Shakespeare on the bass. So, Walking in the Rain, wow, really good song. Highly recommended. When I picked these up, I hadn't listened to these in years. I just had a best of Grace Jones on a CD, and I was digging into it over the winter time one day, and I'm like, you know, I'm gonna look for some more Grace Jones, and I found these two the same day last Friday, and I was really happy to find them. And they also do a cover here. Speaking of covers, Demolition Man. That's a song by The Police. That was on Ghost in the Machine. Not sure the year that came out, but sometime in the early 80s. But yeah, she does a good version of Demolition Man. I actually like this version better than the Police version. And of course, Nightclubbing is the title track on this. I'd be remiss if I didn't recommend that as well. There she is. I don't know if there's anything on the inside here for artwork. It's just really cool. She was cool. I forget the James Bond movie. She actually was in it. She played like an assassin. Yeah, of course. Well, she was on the Island label out of the UK. But yeah, I always like the Island logo. But yeah, again, both of these are in great shape. Like they just came out of the store new. And whoever had these prior took great care, and they're in excellent condition. So, there's a legend himself, Bob Dylan. He did this traveling show. I'm not sure the year of this. It was called the Rolling Thunder Review. Yeah, 1976. Various guests played on this. You got Mick Ronson on guitar. T-Bone Burnett's on this. Don't know the rest of these guys. No one else of note to me anyway. But yeah, again, this came out in 76, and it's not a long album. It's not a double, it's a single. So, you know, You're a Big Girl Now. He does a great version of that. Lay Lady Lay's on this. Shelter from the Storm. Idiot Wind too. I think that was on, that's on the Infidels album. And that's also really good. I don't know if that was on Infidels. No, I think Idiot Wind was actually on, cat got my tongue here. I'm trying to think of it. Oh, this is going to bother me. Let me see if I have it right here, actually, to show. Yeah, here it is. I happen to have this handy. Yeah, Idiot Wind on here. Of course, it's on Blood on the Tracks. There you go, right there. And Idiot Wind. There's Idiot Wind, track 4 right there. So yeah, Bob Dylan, it's a live album. It's called Hard Rain. I think Take Off on it, Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. Of course, one of his legendary tracks. And this was released in 76. Really good live album. Wish he would have done a double because it's really good with T-Bone Burnett, but what are you gonna do? I'm just glad I have that one. Speaking of kind of maybe Bob Dylan influenced people, that leads me kind of into this one. This is Steve Forbert. This is his debut. It's called Alive on Arrival, released in 1978. Steve Forbert, he was initially a truck driver living down in Tupelo, Mississippi, made his way up to New York City, and when he was 18, 19, had dropped out of high school, and he was going to make or break it as a musician. So he was a street performer, playing in the subways, and that's where he was actually discovered. And so this came out in 78, and it's actually funny because on side 2 of this, it's a really nice ballad. It's called Grand Central Station, March 18th, 1977. Don't know the significance of that date. I should have looked that up, but, I'm speculating that it was around that period, maybe that he'd been approached by an A&R guy at this label, the now defunct Nemper Records, and then he got a deal and was signed, and then that led, of course, to Alive on Arrival. Some of the highlights on this one, Going Down to Laurel, of course, Grand Central Station, March 18th, 1977. Really, it shows that he's listened to a lot of Bob Dylan. You can see there he is with his harmonica and his acoustic guitar, because on that ballad, March 18th, 1977, there's a great harmonica solo, and it's very Dylan-esque. I know that gets thrown around a lot, but this really is Dylan-esque at points. And then there's some pleasant pop stuff on it, like I said, Going Down to Laurel, Steve Forbert's Midsummer Night's Toast. It's he's kind of talking about himself. He's definitely a chill guy. I watched a couple of interviews with him on YouTube from back in the day, and he's still around, still performing. In fact, in 2020, during the pandemic, he did a whole album of covers. It's only on CD, but I'm definitely going to look it up. He does covers of Leonard Cohen, Gordon Lightfoot. I think it'd be really interesting. I haven't sought out any of it to hear it. I'm sure some of that's on YouTube, but I'll probably seek that out on compact disc, that album of covers. So right after he did this, he did a follow-up called Jackrabbit Slim. I'm definitely going to seek that out, because at the time this came out, I was a 10-year-old. I remember seeing the cover, but at the time I was, like I've said before, I was into Kiss and stuff, and this would have been over my head at the time. But I'm glad it's kind of a new to me discovery, Steve Forbert, and I'm definitely going to be seeking out more of his stuff. And so his sophomore album, again, that came out, Jackrabbit Slim, had a huge single. It's called Romeo's Tune, and it actually, Keith Urban, that guy, I'm not into any of that new country stuff, but he kind of created a Steve Forbert revival. He recorded it half dozen, 6, 7 years ago. Like I said, Keith Urban, Mr. Nicole Kidman, and he did a version of it and got generated interest in Steve Forbert again, and rightly so. The guy was a talented guy and deserves some accolades. So again, Steve Forbert, Alive on Arrival, and that was released in 1978, as I said. And we have here, I mentioned Eric Clapton before, so everybody knows Clapton came up through John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, and of course the legendary Cream in my top 10 of favorite bands of all time. And then, the one-off supergroup he did with Blind Faith. So at that point, he was kind of burned out already, and he was still a very young man. He went to the States and worked here with Delaney Bramlett and his wife, Bonnie Bramlett. It's Delaney and Bonnie, of course. And, you know, there was this was kind of a super group, of course. Rita Coolidge sings vocals on this. I'd mentioned Rita Coolidge a couple of videos ago, how she sang with other bands. Well, this is one where she sang backup vocals. So yeah, Clapton was bored and he wanted to get back to kind of some roots rock, and he did it with these guys. There they are. Huge outfit right there. Even though they're American, this was recorded in England. I was kind of surprised about that. But yeah, played around the US. Small dates, and there's a couple of there's a cover on here, Long Tall Sally. It's it's actually a Little Richard medley on here that's very good. Tribute to Robert Johnson on here called Poor Elijah. That's also very good. And the album kicks off with Things Get Better. That's a fun party song. Really like that. And I do like the cover art on this too. So this was again 1970 on Atco, which was a division of Atlantic, and you can see here, yeah, 1970, the release date on that. Highly recommend this. I'm a big Clapton fan, and I was glad to find this because every time I see it, it's banged up, and this one's in really good shape. And again, I got this for a really great price. Again, under 10 bucks. Really excellent. Almost at the end here, folks. Don't show greatest hits a lot, but this is a band I'm happy just to have greatest hits. It's Canned Heat, kind of that bluesy swamp rock stuff from the 60s. This has all the essentials are on here. A nice gatefold sleeve. For whatever reason, the band chose to show childhood photos under their adult photos. It's kind of an interesting contrast, interesting concept. And there's the can, you know, there's their logo, the Canned Heat, boom. Yeah, so again, they're all here. Bullfrog Blues, that's an excellent track. Of course, Going Up the Country. If you listen to classic rock radio at any point in your life, you've heard that. And a couple others on here, like Boogie Music. Fried Hockey Boogie is 11-minute jam. That's really good. And this is Canned Heat. Nice artwork on the back. And again, like I said, nice gatefold sleeve. But this, it's not a double album. It's a single. They just did the gatefold for whatever reason. Cool artwork, I guess. So not even sure the release date on this. This is probably, you know, 1970, 72, around there. No date on it. But yeah. Anyway, really good. Canned Heat. Just like a best of. Well, it is a best of. The best of Canned Heat. What am I saying? So you also know that I'm a big Sinatra fan. So there was three. Well, there was a pile. A bunch of them were reissues. These are originals. I was very pleased to find these and in really excellent condition. A lot of the time you find the originals and they're really banged up to the point you can't clean them up. No record cleaner is going to bring them back to life. But these, thankfully, are all great. And it's all the Capitol stuff. That's what I really like. Of course, this one's with Billy May. Normally on Capitol, he played with the Nelson Riddle Orchestra, but this is with Billy May and his orchestra, and it's called Come Fly With Me. I'm not sure the release on this one. I think it's 1952 or so, 52, 53, really early Frank Sinatra. And it just makes you want to go on a vacation, right? And I'm doing that in a week or so here. I'm actually going on a cruise. I'm not going to the Isle of Capri here. That's an excellent track, but I am going to Bermuda. Yeah, again, if you want to recommend some of the songs in here, Isle of Capri is really fun. April in Paris, Autumn in New York's beautiful. And Blue Hawaii, Brazil, Road to Mandalay. They're all songs about travel, of course, because it's, you know, there he is, Come Fly With Me. He's at the airport. He's going somewhere. Yeah, the old TWA logo right there. No longer in existence airline. Come Fly With Me, Frank Sinatra with Billy May and his orchestra. Two more from Frank. This is just a collection. Sinatra sings of love and things. So I guess it's just various things he's singing about here. So yeah, there's some ballads on here. The Nearness of You, that's really nice. Love Looks So Well on You. Sentimental Baby, of course, there's Frank. And yeah, this one, I believe, is with Nelson Riddle and his orchestra on this one. So yeah, this is good. Sinatra sings of love and things. It's great. He can sing about anything. The phone book makes it sound great. It's Frank Sinatra. And lastly, this is Look to Your Heart. Not sure the year on this one either. These are all 60s, early to mid 60s. And yeah, this is, of course, orchestra conducted by Nelson Riddle. And I'll just see what the Capitol logo on the inside. Like, look at the sleeve here. It's just, it's near mint condition. It's really great, and so are the records. And again, these were all around 10 bucks. I think the inner sleeve, of course, was a newer sleeve, replaced by whoever had this. But yeah, it's really in excellent shape. I don't know the significance of the capital with the green label. Anybody watching, my vinyl community friends, know the significance of the green. I don't know if that means this was a reissue. Doesn't say. But again, yeah, if anybody knows the significance of that, I'd be curious for your input on that. So on that note, folks, that's kind of the end. Said I was going to stick it to 30 minutes. I'm at 30:23, just over. This is probably my last video for a little bit. Like I said, I'm going on vacation, and then we have July 4th coming up. So summer, you know, in New England, you get this window of great weather, and you want to be outside and not inside making YouTube videos. But I'm making one today. I just thought I'd show a bunch of that stuff that I had while it was fresh in my mind. Like I said, I just picked all those up just a week ago. And I recommend if you're in the New England area, In Your Ear Records, it's a great store, again, on Commonwealth Avenue, downtown Boston. Highly recommend it. So I wish you well, folks, and you probably won't see me again until July. So anyway, enjoy summer. It's kicked off. Hope the weather's great wherever you are, and I'll see you in July.